When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour.
Tyler.
Hey, Piet. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the New Score podcast. My name is Pat. This is my co-host, TYG, Tyler Pratt. Tyler, how are we doing on this fine Friday morning?
Good. Got a lot going on. A busy Friday for me, but excuse me. We're here. Had a bit of what did I say? I put in my coffee butterscotch schnapps. So we're ready to roll.
Cheers, mate. We got a very special episode, everybody. We want to thank y'all for listening. If you're on YouTube right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Get at us on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you very much for the support. Tyler, we got our Week 14 NFL preview. Can't believe it's already Week 14. Breaks my heart. Yeah. Season just flies by every single year.
It's crazy.
Before you know it, we're in Week 14. Also have a very special guest coming on for Questions with a Fan, Dallas Cowboys edition.
Oh.
But very excited for that. We're going to rip through these games pretty quickly. We're going to cover all the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games. And then we'll talk about the Eagles-Cowboys game with our guests later on in the show. Tyler's going to give you the lines of everything, what the angles are looking like. If you plan on putting in some bets this weekend, we got your back. Not too much we're going to say about these games. We're going to kind of save it for next week when we really talk about what happened in the game. So we're going to try to get through this episode and get on to Questions with a Fan decently quick, Tyler. But starting off, I did want to mention that the Indiana Pacers, Los Angeles Lakers both won. They will now be playing Saturday night for the in-season tournament championship.
Ooh.
Lakers spanked the Pelicans. Excuse me. And then the Pacers won again, beat the Celtics. Or no, they didn't. They already beat the Celtics. They beat the Bucks. So they beat the Celtics and then they beat the Bucks.
Yeah. And of course, like first ever in-season tournament, LeBron in the finals for it. I feel like this meant something to LeBron to win the first ever in-season tournament at 38 years old. He's probably like, gotta do it, gotta get it done.
Yeah,
but it's a good game though.
That what a difference too in like perspective when it's like if you look at the Lakers, it's like, oh well, of course the Lakers are in that. You know what I mean? Like of course the Lakers are there, and then you have the Pacers though from the other side, Indiana Pacers. So I think that's awesome to see. Already talked about them last episode. Really like Halliburton. Yeah, he's a dog, man. He's a dog. He's really fun to watch. Yeah. But looking forward to that. That'll be I hope it's a good game. I hope it goes right down to the wire because that'll be really cool experience, especially being the first in-season tournament ever, being the championship. Like let's just get a good game. Let's get a good game out there. But what do you say we dive into these NFL matchups?
Let's rip.
All right, let's start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 5-7 at the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons. Just want to say this is a huge game for the implications of this division right now. Bucks being 1 game back, so this is really a good chance for the Buccaneers to state their case to win the division. I know neither of us picked the Bucs to win. We did have our playoff predictions last episode. If you didn't get to check that out yet, do that because we gave out all NFL predictions for playoffs. We also talked about our coach of the year, and then we capped it off with a state of the Buffalo Bills with 2 guests, and that was pretty dope. That was a dope segment. So, Tyler, moving on though to this Falcons-Bucs game. Like I said, this is a huge game.
Huge.
What are you seeing as far as the lines?
2.5 Bucs are dogs on the road at the Falcons. Like Pat said, huge game. And Pat, I'd like to get the Billy Fusillo, so that way I don't have to do it every time. We say huge game. Huge game. Very, very big, obviously, divisional matchup. This is, I don't know. I mean, if the Saints lose, Falcons win, I don't know what the tiebreaker is between these two. Either way, about 60% are on the Falcons. I feel like the Bucs are kind of the right play here. I don't know. Are the Falcons still rolling with Ritter? Is that all we know? Is Heineke done for the year, or is he just hurt for a little while and they're sticking with Ritter?
I'm pretty sure they're just sticking with Ritter at this point.
Might as well, I guess. But yeah, Bucs are 5-1 ATS. So while they could still lose this game, but at 2.5, not a bad play. If you can get the Bucs at 3 or 3.5, I would snag that. But 2.5, I don't know. You can kind of go either way. This is one I might stay away from. But if you wanted to throw something on this, probably go with Tampa. The over-under is 40.5, opened at 39. So it's gone up 1.5 over the course of this week. But honestly, a lot of these games, Atlanta doesn't matter because they'll be in a dome. But a lot of these games, it's going to be kind of like last week. Every East Coast game you watched, there was just like wind, rain. That's kind of the anticipation this week. So wait till Sunday morning, see what the weather's like in a lot of these games, and then make your bets. Because, like I said, shitty weather leads to just a different play style and how teams are going to call the game, especially like we're going to talk about the Chicago game coming up too. Like that's going to be weather implications will be huge in that one. So wait till Sunday to put these in.
Pretty sure I haven't won a single bet involving the NFC South this year. And that's how I feel looking at this game. I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with this game. Nothing to do with it. It's so unpredictable.
Last week I had a lot of money riding on the Bucs, and I needed them to cover at least 2.5, which they did. They beat the Panthers by 3. That 2-point conversion was the difference from I had good week last week. If they wouldn't have got that 2-point conversion, I would have won 2 more parlays. That 2-point conversion was riding. 2 parlays were riding on that. So could have been a huge week. But either way, still had a good week. They covered the 2.5, and that's what we need them to. They're getting 2.5 this week, and I think they can cover that. So it's going to be a good one, though.
Colts Bengals. Colts are 7-5. Talked a lot about them last episode, and we got the 6-6 Bengals coming off that performance on Monday night. Do we expect Jake Browning more of the same, or what do you got for this one?
Yeah, I think this might be the result of a little overreaction from the Monday night game against the Jags. The Bengals have 61% of the tickets on them. I know obviously this is a very big game too. Both of these teams are, I don't want to say that Indy's not going to win their division, but Jacksonville being a game ahead, Houston has the same record. I feel like if anyone's going to win the division, it's one of those two, but they're only a game back. They're still fighting for the playoffs. Cincinnati's backs against the wall. They can't lose. They know that. I don't know. Bengals are 1.5-point favorites on this. Colts are 4-1 against the spread on the road. Even in their last 10, they're 7-3. They're getting 1.5. That means this Bengals defense hasn't been too impressive over the last few weeks. So with an Indy offense that I don't want to say they're hot. I mean, I feel like Indy's had a lot of things drop their way, but I don't know. I probably would take the Colts on this. Like I said, I think we have a bit of a public overreaction. So I'm probably going to ride with the Colts plus 1.5. I mean, maybe come Sunday, once again, this could be a this could be a bad weather game out in Cincy. So we'll pay attention to that. But over-under is 43.5. Probably going to go over. But yeah, it should be a good game too.
Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who we just mentioned came off that loss on Monday night. They're 8-4 now, visiting the 7-5 Cleveland Browns. Status of Trevor Lawrence is unknown right now. He's questionable. Did not mention last episode, Christian Kirk is going to be out for some time, so that's unfortunate for them.
Yeah.
But they're playing at the Browns, and I believe DTR is also questionable. He is. So DTR and Lawrence are questionable. Maybe we see Flacco again. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I actually thought I saw something yesterday that it was like due to interviews and just some things that came out, they're pretty much expecting Flacco to start again this week. So that's what I would anticipate is Flacco starting. But once again, this could be another shitty weather. We'll have our girl Hannah Storm give us the weather report though Sunday morning. But this game though, call her Hannah Storm.
I think she works at ESPN. I think it's the Hannah Storm that works at ESPN.
Oh shit, Hannah Cook! Shout out Hannah Cook. She's a great person.
Your cook.
Weed is gonna be at that game, and Weed and shit. What is he nicknamed?
Port.
Yeah, we're gonna have Weed and Port out in Cleveland at this game, so they're gonna bring the juice. But this is a good matchup. I mean, Jags 4-0 against the spread on the road. Cleveland 5-1 ATS at home. In Cleveland splits this year. The splits, Cleveland's been incredible at home. So what I might do is throw a smaller bet in on Jacksonville at +3 in the event that Lawrence does end up playing, but not much because to be honest with you, if Lawrence was playing, the Jacksonville's probably anywhere from 2 to 3 point favorites. But that Cleveland defense is fucking tough. And him playing with that injury, like I think we talked about it last time, ankle, obviously high ankle sprain. It's tough to play on, really tough to play on. And then he's got those shaky knees that he's been dealing with and playing through as well. So not a great matchup for Jacksonville here, to be honest with you. I think Cleveland is the play, no matter what. If Lawrence does play, this line's going to flip. This line will flip, and then it might either be a pick 'em or maybe they'll swing at 4 points. But I don't know. I don't think the books have like a 5 to 6 point swing once Lawrence gets announced that he's playing. So,
dude, the Browns' defense is as great as it was. Throughout the first part of the season, these last couple of weeks, they gave up 29 to Denver, and then they gave up 36 last week to us. So
on the road,
I mean, it's the Jags' offense is very capable. Offense is very capable. If Lawrence is out there, he's just going to have to manage that pain. But I like the Jags' chances in this game. But let's move on to the Detroit Lions, 9-3 at the 4-8 Chicago Bears. These two teams played a great game a few weeks back where the Bears looked like they had it in hand. Jalen Johnson had that drop pick 6. Tyler Scott, a couple late miscues in that game. I thought Justin played really good that game for the Bears. And then ultimately Goff comes down 2 late drives right down the field, and Detroit ends up coming back to win. But this could be one of those messy games as well in Chicago this weekend, which is not good for Jared Goff. And it's not good for Jared Goff being in that weather and against the Chicago Bears defense, who is balling right now. This Bears defense is absolutely balling. They made Josh Dobbs look so bad last week, and they made quarterbacks look bad these last few weeks. So I'm interested to see how Fields plays in this game, obviously. Whether the weather's good or not, he can't afford any more bad games. He just can't. He's getting to the point now where it looks like the odds are stacked against him, and he's really going to have to do something to show that he should be the franchise quarterback going forward. I hope he does do that. I am interested to watch this game. I'm interested to see how Detroit looks after they were going on a bit of a skid, and then they just put it on the Saints last week. But then they got the Saints back in the game. So it's like with the Lions, you see so much, like when they're playing, they're really playing. And then you see like they're just not a consistent football team right now. So I'm excited to see how that team looks. And like I said, against a Bears defense that looks really, really good to watch right now. What are your thoughts?
This is a classic, like pros Joe's game. About 69-70% of the tickets are on Detroit here. I think everybody sees Detroit -3 at 9-3, 8-4 against the spread, 5-1 ATS on the road, and they see him at -3. I mean, I don't blame anybody if you throw money on Detroit in this one, but like Pat said, not a good spot for Goff, a team that's been inconsistent, and really the defense has been the biggest inconsistency for them. And even offensively, though, like they go through these spurts, like you said, against the Saints. First half, really that first quarter, I think they put up 21. Hot. 21 in the first quarter. They were hot. And then I don't feel like they scored again until like the third or the fourth, maybe. It was just, and they go through these spurts. But either way, this is going to be in Chicago. The weather is already Chicago. The weather is already projected to be shitty. It's projected to be really windy. I mean, it's the Windy City. Really windy, really rainy. Once again, Sunday morning, we will see. But this doesn't favor well for Jared Goff. He's not a great outdoors quarterback. I don't know. This is a lot of pros are going to come in on Chicago on this one. So that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be right with them. I'm on Chicago. Go Bears.
Houston Texans 7-5 at the 4-8 Jets. Don't want to say too much about this game. The Jets being what they are, I'm over it. It's kind of like the Chargers thing where I'm just sick of seeing the same thing out there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to watching CJ Stroud in this game. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be a good test for him, right? Against like a really good defense on the road. This is another one. 70% of the tickets are on Houston, but this is a spot where a lot of people, I'd say a lot of pros, like the Jets. I can't get with it, though. I mean, I think Zach Wilson is starting, by the way. I think they're bringing Zach Wilson back in. It could be false, but I think they're bringing Zach Wilson back in to start. Over under. This is 33.5. It opened up at 37.5. It's dropped 4 points. Once again, pay attention to the weather on this one. Houston -3.5. Can't blame you if you throw money on Houston, but also can't blame you if you throw money on the Jets here. They're getting 3.5 home. That defense is really tough, but I just can't. I can't bet on the Jets. I can't do it. They're all, like I almost have them blacklisted. Every time I bet on them this year, they fucked me. So I'm tired. I don't know about you guys. I'm tired of getting fucked. So not riding with the Jets. I'm sticking with the Texans on this one. Go CJ.
Zach Wilson is starting. I didn't even know that. That's wild. I know they signed Brett Rippon off Seattle's practice squad earlier this week, so I thought maybe he would play. Yeah, dude, it's bad. But
desperate.
Good to see Zachy back out there.
Yeah, I'm sure his confidence is sky high.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also breaking news. The Los Angeles Rams have signed Mason Crosby.
Oh, no shit. He still got it, huh?
I don't know. We're going to find out.
I thought he was long gone.
Find out. Speaking of those Los Angeles Rams, 6-6, playing at the 9-3 Baltimore Ravens. Talked about it last episode. Lamar owns NFC teams.
Yeah.
I believe it's 19-1 against NFC teams. So
Crazy.
absolutely absurd stat. It's hard to prepare for Lamar Jackson, and it's going to be hard to prepare for him once again, especially now when they got more weapons. I mean, obviously you take out Mark Andrews, but as far as a wide receiver group, they're well established right now. That run game's tough. That defense is tough. Not a great spot for my Rams this week. Tyler, what's the spread?
7.5. They are giving the Rams 7.5 points, which is really what makes this tough. And that, shockingly enough, right now tickets are 50-50. As far as what I'm seeing, this is the only even game. There's a couple that are close, but 50-50 right now. Over unders dropped 4 points since it opened, down to 40.5. Once again, it's going to be in Baltimore over on the East Coast, in a place where it can get real shitty. So we'll have to pay attention to that weather, because if this turns into a game where, it's a bad weather game where you're going to see a lot of running, you're going to see a lot of RPO with Lamar Jackson, which you're going to see regardless. But if it is raining, you'll see more of that. Then I would have to favor Baltimore. If it stays clear and the Rams can throw the ball as much as they want, then I like the Rams getting 7.5 here. So I don't know, maybe a lot of the public comes in on this a lot leading up to Sunday, and then the line goes up to even 8.5 for LA, which in that case I can't pass on. But bad weather, I'll ride with Baltimore. Fair weather, I'll ride with the Rams. But once again, wait till Sunday to bet this. We need to see what the weather's looking like.
Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints. Pass. Minnesota Vikings and the Las Vegas Raiders. Minnesota sitting at 6-6, coming off 2 straight losses now after they went on that unbelievable run. And then Dobbs came in and he looked like MVP candidate out there. Like I said, they lost 2 in a row. Looked like shit last week against the Bears in prime time. Interested to see what Minnesota offense comes out and looks like with Justin Jefferson anticipated to play now. So I'm excited to see Justin Jefferson back out there. He's arguably the best receiver in the NFL. So it's exciting to watch as a football fan. And now Dobbs has that number 1. And it's really going to be interesting with you got Jefferson, you got Addison, who's established himself. While Jefferson's been gone, Addison's been carrying the load, and he's done a great job. So now to have Jefferson back on the other side with Hawkinson, I mean, this offense could take off. Do we pick the Vikings to make the playoffs? No, we're sleeping on them. We're sleeping.
I don't think we're sleeping.
I believe it was because of their schedule. I believe it was because I was looking at the schedule, and I didn't like their schedule going forward. But they very well could do it. We've seen the potential of that team, and like I said, now you get JJ back. Raiders.
So they're coming off a bye. They're 4-2 ATS at home. Vikings 5-0-1 ATS on the road. 40.5 is the total here. Vegas opened at +2.5. It's went up to +3. I think a lot of people saw that 2.5 for Minnesota, and they jumped on it. If 52% of the tickets are on Minnesota, they're -3. I would take it. I would take Minnesota here at -3. If it goes to 3.5, 4, if you like Vegas, sure, whatever, jump on them. But I don't really see Vegas sticking around in this one. I think Minnesota Dobbs bounce back, and I think they play well. I think they win this by my number would have been anywhere from 5-7, to be honest with you.
Was there anything you wanted to say about that Panthers Saints game?
No, not really. 65% of this is a Pros Joe's game as well. 65% of people are on the Saints with. I don't know what the whole situation with Derek Carr is going in this one. I know he was hurt, but I think he's playing.
Start Jameis. Just start Jameis, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if they start Jameis, I think this line goes down to 4.5 or 4. But I think that's all the difference is right now between those two is really just a point and a half. So I think a lot of pros are going to jump on Carolina, especially if this sits at 5.5 going into Sunday. If this jumps up to 6, everyone's going to jump on Carolina. If you can get that at 6, that'd be huge because Carolina's going to be, they're going to be a solid like backdoor option. Just to point this out, New Orleans is 0-5 against the spread at home. They're just 2-8 against the spread all year. So, but I mean, not that the Panthers are much better. They're 1-5-1. We get ATS on the road. So, I don't know, but I would rather ride with Bryce Young just because that Carolina defense has been playing better over the last few weeks like they were in the beginning of the year. So give me Carolina.
Seattle Seahawks now sitting at 6-6. They have lost 4 of their last 5 games.
Oof.
San Francisco 49ers, 9-3. They've won their last 4 games. So these two teams are trending in different directions.
Yeah.
49ers, Seahawks. I feel like every time these two teams play, the Niners just bully them. I remember in that playoff game last year, the Seahawks hung around for a little bit, but eventually everything the Niners had was just too much for Seattle, and Seattle couldn't hang with them. I think they're just too physical of a football team for Seattle, in my opinion. And right now they got it rolling. We saw what they did in Philly last week, and I expect that to just kind of continue.
Well, so kind of crazy. It opened up at 12.5. I think it went as high as 13. And then it had a huge drop down to 10.5. So it was like as soon as it hit 13 or even 12.5 too is crazy. I think a lot of pros jumped on it, and 54% of the tickets are on Seattle, which is kind of crazy. But the line right now is sitting at 10.5. Oh, the total's 46.5, which I would probably go. To me, I like the over on that one just because the Seattle defense has been so bad. I think San Francisco puts up 30 plus. But I also think that the public saw what Seattle did against Dallas, and they think that their offense is like found it. No, I think that they had a good plan, a good game plan, and they executed well against Dallas defense that really didn't show up until they absolutely needed to in the fourth quarter, late on the last couple of drives. So I don't know. At 10.5, I probably would even go San Francisco. They just played them like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Thanksgiving.
Seattle.
Yeah, so it's really only I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, whatever. And they whooped them. And then they whooped the Eagles, and now they're playing them again. I just smell another whooping in this one. So, yeah, I'm going San Fran, 10.5, 11.5, 12.5. Give me San Fran. Come on, Brock. Purdy on up. Put Purdy.
Love that. Let's move on to the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers, Tyler. Denver 6-6. Absolutely fucked 2 of my parlays for me last week. I had a really good Sunday, and then the 2 parlays that did not hit were due to that Denver game. They had a chance late. It just felt like they were getting chance after chance late in that game. The defense was doing what they had to do to keep them in that game in Houston. And Russ had a chance, man. Russ had a chance at the end of the game, throws the 50-50 pick in the end zone. And I don't know. That was a real tough one for me because 2 parlays were shot, and I would have had a perfect day if it wasn't for that. But what do you got on this game?
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised the line's sitting where it's at. I know it's in LA, but they're giving Denver 2.5 here. So Denver is the dogs, but 60% of the tickets are on them. The totals dropped 1.5 since it opened down to 43.5. The Chargers opened at 3-point favorites. It's now sitting at 2.5. Denver hasn't been great covering on the road, but the Chargers have been just as bad covering at home. I like Denver in this one, but it'll bounce back after that L. Chargers find ways to lose games, and I don't really understand why they're favored here. I mean, maybe their defense has turned a corner and they found something. But 6-0 last week against the Patriots. So you want me to turn around and pick them as the favorite against a Denver team who's been playing really well over the last 5 weeks? Obviously they just lost last week, but like passed that 50-50 ball in the end zone to end the game. And it wasn't a Hail Mary. I think they had the ball at like the 15-20 yard line. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be betting Denver probably pretty heavy. I was going to say earlier, last week, last game, Joe Staley, Brandon Staley, tomato, charges, find ways to lose games. They don't cover. They did cover last week, though, which I did bet big on them last week.
God, yeah. Barely.
They were 5.5 last week. They win the game.
By the hair of our chinny chin chins.
Goodness gracious, dude. So either way, though, I'm not betting them this week. I like the Broncos at plus 2.5. So let's ride.
I'm all over Denver. Gonna
2.5,
and I'll sprinkle some money line action on that.
Fuck yeah.
Last game, as I said, we'll go over Eagles Cowboys with our guests here shortly. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills coming off a bye, 6-6, visiting the 8-4 Kansas City Chiefs. NFL predictions last episode, I said the Bills are going to find a way to win 4 of the next 5 and get in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I said that the other day. I still believe that. I put my bet in for them to make the playoffs. I think that this is a really good spot for Buffalo coming off a bye. I know they're playing at Kansas City coming off a loss, right? But I really like what I'm seeing from the Bills offense. They can get, if they could just string together some stops on defense. And the Chiefs offense doesn't look great right now. They're not clicking. The wide receiver group is what it is at this point. I don't think they're just all of a sudden going to take a leap. Like we've seen what that wide receiver group is now. We see what they are. I don't expect them to, all of a sudden get better in these next few weeks. And like Mahomes is going to have to do something special, Tyler, in my opinion, for the Chiefs to make a run this year. I really think that. I really think if the Chiefs make a run this year, I think that's the most credit that Mahomes should get up to this point. Like if he could find a way to get it done with this team, I know their defense is better, but their defense is also really banged up. Bolton's still out. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they get him back because he is a difference maker. He's the leader of that defense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So if they get Bolton back, that defense is really going to have something going into the postseason. But Kelsey doesn't look like the same guy, and the receivers are just not stepping up for Mahomes. So I like the Bills right now, Tyler.
It's hard to bet against Mahomes when he is a favorite under 3 points. I think statistically it's like 70+% of the time. It might even be higher than that. He covers when he is a favorite of less than 3 points at home off a loss. So 61% of the tickets are on KC. Totals 48.5. This is more obviously Midwest. We'll have to see what the weather's looking like in this one. I don't think it's going to be too bad though. It's not going to be East Coast weather. It's going to be a good game though. I do anticipate this one being pretty much coming down to a field goal. So I'm going to ride with Mahomes just based on the numbers. But if you bet Buffalo at plus 1.5, or even if you take them straight up money line, like I don't hate it. So you could really go either way on this one. I'm just riding with Patty Boy.
Not me, just him.
Yeah, no, not Pat, but Mahomes, Patty Boy.
Got that. Yeah. Should be a great game. Should be a great game, Tyler. Excited for that game this week.
Greg on.
But that is it for our Week 14 preview. We will have those big juicy bets out before the games start on Sunday, so be on the lookout on our Instagram for that. Tyler, let's get into it. Questions with a fan. Dallas Cowboys.
Oh.
Joining us now for Questions with a Fan, Dallas Cowboys, we have our co-host, TYG, Tyler Pratt, here to talk about his Cowboys, and a very special guest, Coach Jason Truesdale. Coach, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you for coming on. It's crazy to think about when we decided we were going to do the Cowboys this week. Haven't talked to you in over 10 years. And for some reason, when I thought Cowboys, I immediately thought of you. And I thought it'd be awesome to have you on. And that's probably been my favorite part about doing these segments as we've gone through these teams, is just catching up with people from the past. It's good to talk to them, and it's great to see you. So thank you again for coming on. Let's start it off with what made you a Dallas Cowboys fan? What are some of your first memories as a Cowboys fan? Coach, go ahead.
So I didn't have any family members that were Cowboys fans, so it was actually the star on the helmet. I was a young kid. I think I was 4 or 5, and the star just led me to the team. That's number one. That's really what it was. We lived in New York for all my adult life, and we just moved down here to North Carolina. But the reality was, I didn't have any family members that were Cowboy fans. The first memory that I really can look back on, I hate to say it, but is the catch. January 10th, I wrote it down, 1982, when the 49ers had that Joe Montana rolled out right and through to Dwight Clark for the touchdown that kind of ended the Cowboys season there. Danny White was the quarterback at the time. Man, I'll tell you, I don't know if I told you guys this or not, but like my mom used to have to put me in the showers to calm me down when the Cowboys lost. So, I'm still a huge Cowboy fan, as you see. I got my Michael jersey on, but that was it. 1982. I was 6 years old at that time, and a lot of people don't remember, but Dallas actually had a throw to Drew Pearson over the middle on a post route, and he caught it. And they're actually now they got the horse collar. He was actually grabbed by the horse collar and brought down. If he wasn't grabbed, he probably, if he doesn't score, it gets him into field goal position, and the changes that could have changed the outcome of the game. But it is what it is. Danny White got sacked on the next play, lost, and he fumbled the ball, and they lost that game. But that was my first recollection of what I could remember, and I was not even 7 at the time.
That's pretty wild to be that young and to remember it that clearly. That's awesome. And to hear about the shower story, that's real good stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
But and it feels like there's Cowboys is one of those fan bases just all over the country. Everybody knows a Cowboys fan. I didn't even mention this at the top. It's like there's so many people like I could have thought of to be like, hey, let's come on and talk about the Cowboys. But it was important for me to have you on, Jason, because I wanted to hear about the past. I wanted to hear about before our time, before we were able to watch football because we weren't even around yet. So to hear you talk about that 1982, appreciate that answer. Tyler, what made you a Cowboys fan? Florida boy, moved to New York. Why'd you become a Cowboys fan?
This was actually my brother, Daniel. He was a big Cowboys fan. So when I was growing up, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, every year he'd dress me up in for Halloween. I'd always have the Emmitt Smith jersey on with the Cowboys helmet, and I'm running to every house acting like I'm Emmitt Smith for some candy. So that's really what made me become a Cowboys fan. But we grew up, me and Coach had different eras. He grew up a kind of golden age of Cowboys fans right through the 80s and the 90s, got to experience those championships. I grew up watching them in the 2000s where we haven't done shit. So I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to see something, but that's really it. And then I think part of it too is when Bledsoe kind of got replaced by Romo and the whole thing too. That's what and then everyone hated him. Everyone was hating on Romo. I think that even made me become like a bigger fan just to back all the hate. So shout out to my boy Tony, though. He's killing it on the broadcast.
Yeah, Coach, as Tyler said, you were fortunate enough to experience, the Jimmy Johnson era. like after that Herschel Walker trade. What are some things that you remember about Jimmie Johnson and about those teams in the 90s?
Well, it's funny. Jimmie, he had success at the college level at Miami, and even before that, he was at Oklahoma State. So, I mean, I go back and I kind of take this as a coach, and he's like, let the mind control the body. And I'm trying to say it in his words, but like, he was just like the master motivator. Now he let his coordinators coach. Like, he was just the walk around head coach. He didn't call plays on offense, defense, or the kicking game. So, he was just tremendous at motivating guys, getting them ready. And, I think he put in bold print, he said, you can put it in bold print against the 49ers that week leading up to the championship game. We will win the game. And, boy, that fired up a lot of people, but he backed it up. It goes back to saying, you better talk the talk, you better walk the walk. So, I mean, he was tremendous at motivating guys. Guys loved to play for him. There was a grind. And guys appreciated that. When he left, it took a lot of heart and soul out of some of their better players like Irvin, Aikman, and Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
Who was your guy from that era? Were you a Troy guy? Did you really like Emmitt or Irvin? Who was your guy?
I mean, I went back and forth on this, thinking about that this morning, and I've always said Emmitt Smith, and I think it was just because of his heart, his soul, and like, he was the guy that, they had the tremendous offensive line, but you could hand the football to Emmitt, and 9 times out of 10 he was going to get that yard. And he was their guy, and Aikman, benefited also too from the offensive line. But I'd have to go with Emmitt, being the all-time leading rusher, everything that he did for the Cowboys. Still to this day, he's, all 3 of those guys are big Cowboy fans, obviously. I would say Troy's a close second, and then Michael. Michael's just, I was just actually watching the Skip Bayless show, and I love watching Skip's. He kills me, but
yeah, he's something else.
I just think that I'd have to go with Emmitt, just because of everything that he did in his time as a Cowboy. He was just amazing.
Yeah.
Lasted forever too. Like, for him to go to Arizona after and still be productive with them, that was insane too. But leading on to like the Jimmie Johnson, Jerry Jones falling out situation, and then on comes Barry Switzer. I got 2 parts to this question. What do you take away from that whole thing that happened? And my second question to that is, does it ever bother you? Like, do you ever feel a certain way when you see like Jerry Jones, like just getting to it? Like, as a neutral fan, like, I don't have any love, hate for the Cowboys. Like, I feel like everybody either loves them or hates them, but like, I've always just respected the Cowboys. I have no like strong feelings towards them. But as a neutral fan, I'm just like, dude, just give it a rest. Like, let your coach, like, let your players play, and just like not make it all about you so much. And then seeing something like that, what do you take away from that? And what are your thoughts on Jerry Jones as an owner?
Well, as far as the owner goes, I think he, kind of take the question first, as you just added the owner part. I think he's a tremendous owner of the football team. If you think about the dynamics of how much value and worth the Cowboys have. I mean, they're number 1 at the top, even when they still haven't been in a championship game in 28 years. As far as him being too involved, I believe he is. I believe he knows he is too. And I mean, he has those Tuesday shows, and I think what has happened with the coaching staff and the players, they've just kind of accepted it. That this is who Jerry is, and if we're going to play for him, that's this reality of the guy who he is. And I think the coaches, they have to be comfortable in their shoes. Obviously, McCarthy has done a tremendous job this year, and that's it. I think that's why Jerry went out and hired McCarthy. I think he did that because he knew that McCarthy was a proven winner, and the fact that he could also handle the fact that if Jerry has issues, he's going to just laugh it off and kind of brush it off his shoulders. going back, I actually wrote it down with the whole issue with Jimmie leaving the Cowboys. When you look back on it, there's a couple things that were said about that. I think it was over beers where Jerry had said that 500 people could win the Super Bowl for the Cowboys. I think that obviously had pissed Jimmie off a ton, and at that point they were back and forth battering. They just come off their second Super Bowl win at the owners' meetings, and I think that was just two prideful, powerful guys that just couldn't figure it out. And the reality is, the Cowboys actually did suffer a little bit that next year when they lost to the 49ers in the championship game at Candlestick.
When you get rid of a coach, like what people don't realize is like that coach also established that culture. Like we talk a lot of coach on this podcast about coaches establishing culture in places. And it's like Jimmy Johnson not only was like a great coach, great players coach, everybody loved him, but he like implemented that culture, that winning culture. And I'm sorry, but like Barry Switzer just came in and won with his team. That culture was already there. That team was already there. But since Barry Switzer left, it's been a little crazy for the Dallas Cowboys. Who's been your favorite Cowboys coach and who's been your least favorite in that time?
So as far as my favorite, I hate to say it because he was the coach for the Giants for a while, but I'd have to say Parcells. I think Parcells, if the season didn't end the way it did in Seattle when Romo dropped that fumbled snap, I think he might stay around. I think it was too much. He's an older guy at the time when he got out of coaching that after that game, because I thought he brought the Cowboys back. He made the tough decision. If you remember right, he did have Bledsoe as a Patriots quarterback as well. The other thing is like he had to make a tough decision. Bledsoe was a Pro Bowler, through the Patriots, and then Dallas actually traded for him to get Bledsoe. And now the fact that he went with Romo to take over showed the confidence that they had in Tony. So I think Parcells was the one that was since Jimmy's left, and I'd say back and forth for whatever reason. I don't know if it was whether I was in college or what early on in the 2000s. I think they had Dave Campbell, and I don't know if they gave Dave enough opportunity or not, but I think either him or I go back and forth with Jason Garrett because I think Jason did some good things, but it's tough for me to say that the coach that I least liked or hated, but I would either say Dave Campbell or Garrett.
Yeah, I didn't even cover like that. It must have been that time you're referring to, like in college, kind of like those in between years. And I remember being a young kid in that time. And I just feel like it was like so blah for me when I think of the Cowboys during that time. All I remember is Quincy Carter. I remember watching Quincy Carter. But Tyler, who's been your favorite coach since your time of being a fan, and who have you not liked so much?
If we have to go with head coaches, if I can't pick a coordinator, then I say my favorite would have to be it'd probably have to be Wade. And I think it was just because I was always so big on the Cowboys having enough on offense, but their defense just never was able to step up and take them to the next level. And Wade Phillips, being that defensive minded guy, actually brought some some of that, I don't want to say toughness, but just, that defensive mindset. And it kind of brought the Cowboys to another level to be competitive and make a playoff run. Because I wasn't a huge fan of Jason Garrett. I didn't get to experience much of Parcells, though. If it wasn't Wade, it'd probably be Parcells. And then, Mike McCarthy now, I don't dislike Mike. I think he's done a good job this year with the play calling since he took over when Kellen Moore left. But for me, it'd probably have to be Wade.
Just to touch on Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips was defensive mastermind so many places for so many years, dude. So many decades in the NFL. I remember when McVay gets hired and he brings Wade Phillips in, and I loved that move by McVay to just like smart coaches they don't have egos. They know, like, bring in the best people that you can around you to help your team win. And he did that by bringing in
Yep.
Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips has been in the NFL longer than Sean McVay's been alive. You know what I mean? At that
Yeah.
point. So for him to do that, I loved seeing Wade Phillips in LA. He really gave us our defense some juice. We had some good players on that defense. I remember what he did with that Denver Broncos defense too. Great defense that
Yep.
won a Super Bowl. So this is a question for both of you. Do you enjoy that you love a polarizing organization like the Dallas Cowboys where they just get a ton of hate, like no matter where you go around the league, fans just hate you? Or does that bother you?
To me, it's really laughable because I think the issue is, the Cowboys, no matter that they've been to the NFC Championship or not, there's a ton of teams that haven't been to an NFC Championship game. But the fact of the matter is, because the Cowboys are such a brand, people love to hate them. So to me, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's could be because I'm 48 and it doesn't bother me. It just doesn't. I think to me, it's funny that some people really dial in on the Cowboys' faults anytime there's Cowboys' faults. And it's amusing to me, to be quite honest with you.
As a neutral fan, I'm always just like, dude, shut up. Like posting all these memes all day of like the Cowboys every time they mess up. Like there's people out there just waiting, like in their basement on a computer, waiting to talk shit about the Cowboys. I feel like people just really get off to that. I don't understand it. If you're an NFC East team, okay, I get that. Like if you're an Eagles fan, Giants fan, Washington fan, is what it is. That's a rivalry. But for like these people just to spend all day talking shit on the Cowboys and these analysts who sit there and like the Stephen A's who like how much money does that dude make off of him just killing the Cowboys every year? But Tyler, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to bring up Stephen A. I think I don't know, is he a Giants fan or a Steelers fan? I can't remember.
Like both.
But
That's the thing. It's like,
both.
dude, you don't even like claim a team. You just and then he loves Aaron Rodgers, so it's put a stamp on it.
Right. He just loves to see the Cowboys fail, which a lot of people do. But I don't know. It's kind of like how I brought up the Tony Romo thing. When a lot of people hate on someone or somebody or something, and they don't really have a lot of, a lot of reason to hate. They just hate to hate. It kind of makes me back them for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just something I do. So when people hate on Dallas, it makes me, back them even more. And that's part of the reason I think, obviously other than growing up, my brother made me love Dallas. But I'm used to it now. You know what I mean? You tell people you're a Cowboys fan, and then everyone, 9 out of 10 people go, oh, here we go. Fucking Cowboys
And there's a
fan.
stereotype.
Like,
there's a stereotype to it too.
Yeah. So it's like, listen, man, I was born in 93. I wasn't even, my eyes weren't even open when we won our last Super Bowl. So I haven't been able to see shit, if anyone's been, I feel like if you're a Cowboys fan, you grew up late 90s and in the 2000s, like you don't really have a reason to brag. I can't brag about championships. So, yeah, no, it just is what it is, but I'm used to it. I feel like every Cowboys fan is used to it. We get a little optimistic when we have a good roster. I think that's our biggest fault. Some of us get a little too optimistic, but yeah, used to it though.
Jason, which NFL team, I mean, it could be NFC East team, could be those Niners, do you have the most dislike in your heart for?
I probably have to say Philadelphia, just because Dallas plays them. It's their division rival. They've really taken over as far as the rivalry goes. The Cowboys and Eagle rivalries a lot more than the Giants and the Cowboys isn't a rivalry. Dallas wins every time they play New York. Washington has won a few games against Dallas, but it's definitely Philly. And I will say that the Philly fan base, I don't know if it's just watching. Social media is terrible. You see everything. They're just brutal towards fans. And, my dad was a big Buffalo fan, so I can't hate Buffalo. But when I went up there in 2007, I was still a coach at Wheat Sport at the time. I don't know if you guys know.
We know.
We were me and my younger brother Dad. We got in a little bit of a altercation, so to speak. So I think I had sunglasses on that week, but so Buffalo's a close second, but it's funny. Like I always was deep down, I pulled for Buffalo just because my dad loved them so much. I wanted them to win. I just didn't want them to beat Dallas, obviously. But it would definitely be Philly 1, Buffalo 2nd, and then obviously the 49ers. You just I don't see the fan base of the 49ers being like, aha, blah, blah, you Cowboys suck. See it with Philadelphia much. But
yeah.
It's going to be an exciting playoff run because I think any three of those teams, and Tyler brought up the optimistic part. The way Dak's playing, his level of play is the best it's been since he's been the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, Tyler, what about you? Who do you dislike the most?
For me, it's 50-50 with the Eagles Giants. Because I just remember having to have so many like arguments and discussions, debates about Eli Manning and the fucking Giants. And I'm like, dude, he's a mid quarterback. This guy is not that good, but he won 2 championships. He beat Tom Brady twice. He beat us, and we had a couple really good teams, and then we blew it against the Giants in the wild card game in that year that they went on to win one of those Super Bowls. So for me, I think I hate the Giants a little bit more than I do the Eagles, even though the Eagles have had, the recent success over the last 5-6 years, and the Giants have sucked, which I love, by the way. I love watching the Giants just be an abysmal organization. So Tommy DeVito, keep killing it, brother. Keep doing your thing. I
pay him.
Just love, pay him. Get and keep Daniel Jones as your backup. Just keep him on the payroll if you don't mind. But yeah, it's those two, and then I think I had a little stint of hating the Packers because they outed us a couple times, and when we had a good chance, and then obviously the 49ers. But I don't hate Green Bay or San Francisco. Just have a little bit of animosity towards them because of those playoff losses. But definitely the Giants 1, Eagles 2 for me.
Yeah, that whole out of that division, obviously, Tyler being my best friend, I've always had, like I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I have I'm pulling for him. I'm pulling for the Cowboys within that division most of the time, especially since big reason for me growing up. I just remember Eli Manning draft day whining about the Chargers drafting him and his family forcing himself to go to the Giants. Huge turnoff for me as a young kid. I still remember seeing that. And from that point on, I just had dislike for Eli Manning. I mean, guy won 2 Super Bowls, made 2 great Super Bowl runs. But I think he's overrated as an NFL quarterback. Those 2 runs will get him in the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Famer because Kurt Warner's in the Hall of Fame. So those 2 runs will get him in the Hall of Fame. But I still think he's an overrated quarterback. Like Tyler said, I think he was very mid, and there were some really bad years with turnovers. So for me, it was always, dislike for the Giants because of Eli Manning. But looking back at those Tony Romo years around that time when they had great teams, like you said, but they always ended up coming up short in the playoffs, or Tony would get injured. I remember that game you're talking about, Tyler. I think it was 06, might have been 07. And the Giants first won it. Cowboys were 13-3 playing at home, and they lost that game. I remember that. But what do you remember from those teams, Jason?
It's funny you guys brought that up, and it's the Cowboys' history is so large. I was actually at that Cowboys-Giants game back in 2000. It was a 2007 year, 2008 playoffs, and they were the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Now the Giants went on the road to beat Tampa Bay, and then they went to Dallas. Dallas beat them earlier in the year twice, and pretty substantially. And looking back on that game, we had end zone seats. My brother and I went to the game in Dallas, the old Texas Stadium, and what people don't understand is, if you weren't at the game, there was actually the play before the throw that he picked, the pick in the end zone to basically end the game. Patrick Creighton ran a go route and he actually stopped. If he just continues to go, and if you go back and look at some of the highlights, just Google it up. Tony throws a perfect throw to where Patrick should have been, and he just stopped his route. He will. I don't know if he catches the ball or not, but it's probably more than 90% chance it's a catch and touchdown, and Dallas goes to the NFC Championship game. So Romo to me was, as far as being polarized, obviously the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys and the shortstop of the New York Yankees. Those guys are pretty much the most polarizing positions in all of sports. I feel kind of bad for Romo because he did get a bad rap, just kind of like you do, Tyler. I think he was a tremendous quarterback. He really was. I think he didn't get the benefits of the defense. You talked about the defense. The Cowboys defense, when they were good, Romo had huge years. You look at it, you talked about the 2013 season. The Giants that year went on after they beat Dallas, then they went to Green Bay, beat Green Bay. Then they were fortunate enough to stop the undefeated season of the Patriots. And then we're not talking about Giants because I don't want to talk about Giants. But the reality is Giants, they got on a run in that year, and that stopped Dallas. Just that game there, you look at, I think 3 years in a row, Dallas was in the ultimate play-in game at the end of the year, and they didn't win those games. I think it was against the Giants once, Washington once, and then the last year, Romo got hurt the game before. He actually brought him back to beat Washington, and then it set up. They had Kyle Orton was their quarterback to the play-in game in Philadelphia. Actually,
Kyle
beat him.
Orton.
But that's what I'm saying. So, the issues with Romo, especially later in his years, he got a little bit banged up. He got hurt. But I thought Romo was a tremendous quarterback for the Cowboys, and in fact, it's one of those things. I never thought that Romo had the luck on his side. The 2014 catch non-catch with Dez. Just, now it's a catch, so it's just like, I think Romo's definitely a top 3-4 quarterback for the Cowboys history, without saying. If he had those Cowboys team that Troy had, he probably wins a couple Super Bowls.
Yeah, and he got off to the start he got off to was the Seattle playoff game, right, where he fumbled the snap, and I think everyone just took that and ran with it. So we had to hear about that for years, and then those runs. It was just like you mentioned, Romo just had so much trouble staying healthy. It was like whenever he got hurt, it wasn't like a minor thing, like, oh, okay, little ankle out, maybe 3-4 weeks. It's like compound fracture, breaks the clavicle, breaks his back. So he's out for like a whole season at a time. And it was just tough for them to year after year keep building these great teams. With having the salary cap, DeMarcus Ware on the other end. That was the biggest thing for me. One of my favorite players of all time was DeMarcus Ware, and I want to say it was 2009 where they had a really great defense. They actually had the top 3 defense, but then we didn't have a great offense, couldn't get it done, and it was just like Dallas for whatever reason couldn't have a great offense and a great defense. It was one or the other. But yeah, that Green Bay game, Dez, that's clearly a catch. I remember I was in Orlando on vacation in a hotel room, and my niece was just a baby and she was sleeping. And so me and my brother are watching that game, and we went crazy as quietly as we could when Dez caught it. And then they did they reversed the call, and my heart was ripped out of my chest, dude. I just couldn't believe it. And then 2 years later in 2016, the fucking Packers beat us again. Rodgers just was masterful. But that 2016 year to me was it was tough because Romo got hurt. I think it was a preseason game. And then Dak comes in and was just great as a rookie. None of us expected it. We took him in the 4th round. We knew it was like not a flyer, but just someone who we could kind of mold behind Romo for a couple more years. And then he gets out to that start when Romo got hurt, and it just catapulted his career. But I would have loved to see what Romo would have done with that 2016 team, because that offensive line was just such a juggernaut. And then Zeke as a rookie was a powerhouse. It was just that was one of the better teams that we've had in the last, I want to say 7-8 years. So I wish he would have got a shot. I think he did. Eagles game. I think it was the very last week of the season, and they gave him one drive. He goes down, throws a touchdown, and we're like, shit. I wish I could have seen this all year. So that was just an unfortunate way for his career to kind of come to an end. But yeah, I mean, love Tony.
For me, I remember Tony Romo being a great quarterback who just got killed all the time. And like Coach said, Dallas Cowboys quarterback, more pressure than anybody in sports. So he was dealing with that. He got a bad rap by a lot of these fans just hating the guy. Like he's got Jessica Simpson, Carrie Underwood in the press box, and people are killing him for it. It's like, oh, appreciate that. Like, why are we killing this guy? And he was playing great football. Like his numbers are right up there with like pretty much anybody from that era. You know what I mean? Like the fourth quarters, I remember too. Great numbers in fourth quarters, but he just got killed for they would come up short in the playoffs. And because of that one game that season, Tony Romo sucks. You know what I mean? Overrated, this and that. Tyler, you said D Ware is probably would D Ware probably be your best favorite player from that era?
Yeah, 100%. D Ware. I mean, I loved Dez once he got in because Dez just kind of brought that fire. And he was a man amongst boys at some times, but D Ware was definitely my favorite. Loved Witten, loved Dez, loved Romo, but yeah, definitely D Ware for me.
I mean, I can't argue with D Ware. I mean, I love D Ware as well too. I always, get excited in third downs. He make that big play, just coming from the ball. He was tremendous, and he still works with the Cowboys a little bit on occasion with Parsons as well too. So he's always trying to get back, to the players and obviously to that Cowboy community. So yeah, D Ware was awesome. I love. What's not to say about Witten? He's into coaching now. He's actually just won a state championship with one of the high schools in Texas. So like, yeah, those guys are all awesome. Love Dez. I mean, all those guys. It's funny, like, you look back on any franchise, if they've had success, whether it was individual or team success, even if they didn't get to a championship game, those guys are still die-hard fans, even after the fact. And that says a lot about, the organization for sure.
Yeah.
I want to get into, Tyler, you mentioned, that 2016 year you draft Dak, Romo gets hurt, Dak takes over. Let's talk about that run where I think they ended up going 13-3 that year. 13-3.
Yeah.
Talk about that transition from Romo to Dak. And it's like, holy shit, like this, we got a rookie quarterback, Dak. You drafted Zeke, my boy from Ohio State. Two rookies carrying this team to a 13-3 record. Tell me about the emotional like roller coaster that year was for you.
For me, it started at the draft, to be honest, because they had it was two players that they were talking about, Zeke and Jalen Ramsey. Those were the two guys that Dallas kept coming on because they had the fourth pick. I knew we needed a running back, but I always thought that offensive line is so dominant. It was so good that you can just get an above average back and he's going to get you 1,100 yards on the ground like DeMarco Murray did back in, I think it was 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. He ran for 1,600 yards. It was just a crazy year for him. And so then in 2016, I was like, I know Zeke, a lot of hype around him. So I'd obviously, great pick, but I think I secretly wanted Ramsey just because Dallas has never really had that number one shutdown corner. So that was big for me. So it started there, but obviously the way that it turned out, Zeke had an incredible year. Romo got the injury. Dak came in, and I didn't have much expectation because I didn't know much about Dak coming in to the NFL other than he led, I think it was Mississippi State. They had their first number one, they were the number one team in the nation for the first time in program history. when Dak was there. So yeah, him being a 4th-round pick, I wasn't sure what to expect, but the way that he just kind of carried himself and showed he had like that leadership at such a young age with kind of a veteran team other than Zeke when he built that relationship with him. It honestly was special to watch two young kids. It's almost like CJ Stroud this year, not quite, I think, to the extent, because I think Dak in 2016 was more of like hand the ball off, play action, manage the game, don't turn the ball over. But he was making plays too. He wasn't just a game manager. He was actually making plays, making throws. So it was incredible to watch. And it obviously ended in Green Bay again. But yeah, I mean, that's honestly one of the more memorable seasons, I think, for me and probably Cowboys fans over the last 15 years, maybe.
I remember it was that Rodgers throw. It was in Dallas. I remember it was that Rodgers throw to Jared Cook. Incredible throw.
Yeah.
Coach, go ahead.
First of all, I want to say, Tyler, you're on point, man. I'm impressed with your Cowboy knowledge.
Appreciate that.
I'll tell you, the draft. Looking back on it, I actually spent the draft with my brother and Andrew Jackson, not the president, but I don't know if you guys know Andrew. He's originally from Cato, but I sat there and said, and I knew that Ramsey was going to be one of the guys available, and they talked about Zeke, but like you had said, the offensive line was so tremendous. I mean, I was a little ticked that DeMarco Murray left to go to Philadelphia. And, Dallas obviously needed a running back, but did they need one to that extent? I did side with that pick. I was like, the Cowboys have a shot to go to the Super Bowl, and I wasn't thinking Dak Prescott was going to lead them. I thought it'd been Romo.
Mm-hmm.
And, Zeke, I think he piled up like close to 250 yards. And in Arlington, when they beat Alabama, when he played for Ohio State. So I knew he was a tremendous runner. So I was excited about that pick. Aikman. Jeez, I'm still thinking. See, I want a Super Bowl so bad. I'm trying to bring Troy back. Tony gets hurt in a preseason game in Seattle on a kind of freakish. He goes to slide, and I think the defensive end linebacker comes and tackles him. And then Prescott takes over. I think they go to the Rams in another preseason game, and he lights it up. And we didn't know the severity of the injury for Tony. They said he was going to be out for a while, but they kept pushing it back. And while they were pushing it back, Dak just kept doing well, and he had a great supporting cast around him. You had said it. Their offensive line was tremendous. When Tony came back, he had that talk to the media about, that Prescott has done a ton in this short time and that he deserved to be the quarterback. Well, I kind of disagreed with Tony at that point. I'll be honest with you. It's tough, and it's such a tough situation, but that team was so good. When I look back on it, you brought up the one drive that he had against Philadelphia. I really do, to this day, believe that if Dallas would have went back with Romo, they would have beat Green Bay. I really believe it. I don't think Green Bay had enough in the secondary to be able to handle Romo, a guy that was savvy and could really read the coverages so well. And the thing is, Dak was still a rookie. I don't think that would have done anything to his confidence.
Right.
The fact of the matter was he was going into the season. He was going to be the third guy, not even the second. He was behind Kellen Moore.
Oh, that's right.
So the reality is he was so good that Dallas just couldn't go away from him. And me being a coach and, thinking that I know more than Jason Garrett, which is not true, but I would have loved to have seen what Romo could have done with that team, because I thought to myself, the way Zeke runs the ball and the way, because Romo's a great play action quarterback.
Yeah.
I thought that they could have really done it won that year. The other thing is you talked about Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey still to this day, like he still hates the Cowboys for not drafting him because they told him that they were going to. So that kind of, and who knows, maybe Dallas is fortunate enough to play Miami this year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that would be cool to see that.
that would be.
They obviously play them in a few weeks here, but they got to take care of business of what's in front of them. The other thing that I was going to talk about that 2016 season is the play before that throw to Cook. Skandrick actually is blitzing from the outside on a safety blitz, and I don't know how that Rodgers was able to hold on to the ball because he literally had come down on his arm, and somehow he was able to pull that ball into his chest and hold on to the damn ball. And the next play, the hold that they never called on oh shit, who's that freaking defense lineman for the Cowboys, number 95?
Irving.
Yes, David Irvin. It was it was one of the worst calls that never was called. And Rodgers was able to roll out to the left and just, I mean, that throw he threw to Cook. And then the stupid double ball kick by Crosby to freaking beat us. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I forgot about some of that. Thanks for bringing it up, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
That's my next question. Is it feels like over the years there's so much like high expectations, and then you continue to come up short in the playoffs. Which playoff loss to this point has been toughest for you as a fan?
Oof, there's a few of them. So I'll go one. I'll put in a couple, and I'll try to go as quick as possible. But my first one was I'll go when I was a young kid. The catch, that hurt a lot, obviously, because the shower was kind of cold and it didn't do a good job of cooling me off. I think I was so upset about that. That's number one. And then I don't know if it was because I was at the Giant game when they lost to the Giants, the divisional, because they had so many opportunities in that game to win that game. And it was just, when you look at it, it's just sometimes it's just that team's season. They went on that run that they did. So that one hurt a lot. And then, the one we just talked about with Green Bay, the way they came back, that's the one thing I said that Dallas should have went back to Tony, but Dak did a heck of a job in that second half. He just struggled in the first quarter and a half of that game. So that kick that Crosby made, I said some things at the end of that game that probably shouldn't be said with my 12-year-old daughter sitting right there. Without a doubt, those three definitely stick out in my mind as the playoff losses that they had to the Giants, the 49ers in 1982, and then, the 2017 playoffs to the Packers. They sting. Those ones sting.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's the 07, the loss of the Giants is probably the worst one for me, and that's tough. That one's the tough one, and then obviously the Dez catch that wasn't a catch, that was just as tough. And then I would say those were the two toughest to kind of stomach. The one that pissed me off the most recently, not even just like to stomach it, just straight up like kind of pissed off, was the 1 year. It was just recently where we ran out of time snapping the ball because the ref couldn't put the ball down against San Francisco, and the whole offense is up there ready to snap it, and the ref's just taking his sweet time getting the ball down. We run out of time, can't even run another snap in that game. And just because like our offense that year, I think we averaged like 30 points a game, and then we put up 12. And it's like, but that's one of the reasons why Dak has that stigma around him right now that he can't get it done in the playoffs, is because of those games, right? Where we have such a high powered offense for 16 games, and then we get in the playoffs and we can't even put up 2 touchdowns. So those ones really pissed me off. But yeah, the Dez catch and then that 07-08 playoff loss to the Giants with the pick in the end zone from Romo, those were the toughest to stomach.
Couple more questions. Once again, Coach, appreciate you coming on. This has been a blast so far. Tell me about the impact of Dan Quinn since he's been in Dallas, and also these last, I want to say, like 5-10 years, I feel like the Cowboys have just been money in the draft. You see all these late round picks that end up having to step in for guys. Talk to me about the impact of Dan Quinn in Dallas, and also how well they've been able to draft over these last few years.
Well, number one, the impact of Dan Quinn is it's off the charts. If it wasn't for McCarthy having a great season, his job would be in jeopardy. Because Dan Quinn's right there. He's the next in line. If the Cowboys if they make it 29 years in a row where they don't make it to the NFC Championship game, I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Quinn takes over. The guys love him. He's still a hard coach, but he makes it fun. The guys, they come to work for him. You can tell Parsons loves him. So that's the other piece is like if Quinn is to leave Dallas, which is very reasonable that it could happen. He actually declined jobs last year. He is unbelievable to that team. Like, his mindset is, that they're going to just be the more physical team, and he's aggressive. He's an aggressive play caller, and guys love that. They love to play for a guy that shows the compassion, the heart that Quinn possesses. I think it goes to show he stayed around. So the fact that he stayed around, he understands, how important it is to be a Cowboys coach, whether you're a coordinator or a head coach. And the reality is he must be paid pretty well because he had opportunities to leave the Cowboys, and he decided to stay. So it's going to be telling these next few weeks and into the playoffs where Quinn goes, whether he's still with the Cowboys or he takes a head coaching job somewhere else. But you'd be kidding yourself if you didn't want to play for a coach like Quinn.
To pretty much echo what Coach said, if the Cowboys don't get it done this year, especially if it's a wild card loss, I think McCarthy's gone. Even though he's gotten better. Those first, I want to say 3-4 games of the season, we were all questioning his play calling. He's turned it around. He's done a lot better. And right now he's got Dak clicking like that offense. Dak's probably having his best stretch of his career right now. But Dan Quinn is just like Coach said, just players love playing for him. I remember seeing Schefter saying there's going to be a crazy amount of head coach openings this offseason. I want to say he said like 7, 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. It's just a crazy amount. So it's hard to believe someone with Dan Quinn's background, his record, and everything that he does, that teams aren't going to be chomping at the bit to try to get him out there. So he already turned a few down last year. It's tough for guys, especially when money starts to play a factor. It's tough for them to turn down these head coaching positions. So if Jerry stays and sticks with McCarthy after this year, if Dallas doesn't win, then it's going to be hard to think that Dan Quinn's going to come back. So we got to get it done. If we want Dan Quinn to stick around, we got to get it done, or they got to get rid of McCarthy. One of the two. But I love Dan Quinn. Don't want him to go anywhere. But as far as the Cowboys scouting, Will McClay, just unbelievable what he's able to do. And I think a huge part of how the Cowboys have drafted too, dating back to that draft with Zach Martin. What was that, 2014? That rookie year, Jerry Jones wanted Johnny Manziel so bad, but he finally started to give some of his duties to Steven and the rest of the guys. And then Stephen Jones was able to talk Jerry out of that pick and talk them into taking Zach Martin. And I feel like that was kind of the turning point for them and their draft strategy. And then just the way that Will McClay kind of just does everything. Obviously, he's a wizard, and they've just got so much value in the back end of the draft, rounds 4 through 7. And that's kind of where, you really build your depth of your team. And that's something that the Cowboys over the last few years have done a real good job of, is having that depth. So love Will McClay, love Dan Quinn. I'd like to have them both stick around for a while.
I had to look it up. You mentioned that 2014 NFL draft when I remember Jerry was in the room and everybody was like, they're going to take Manziel. They're going to take Manziel, and they go with Zach Martin. I just want to share this with you too. That 2014 draft. This is picks 5 through 16. Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews, Mike Evans, Anthony Barr, Eric Ebron, Taylor Lewan, Odell Beckham, Aaron Donald, Kyle Fuller, Ryan Shazier, Zach Martin, CJ Mosley, all in a
Damn.
row. And then the Browns took Justin Gilbert in between those guys. Just legendary draft class. Just wanted to bring that up. But moving
Browns,
on,
man.
let's get into this year's team. I want to talk about what's different with Dak this season. Talk about this year's team as a whole. Diggs goes down early, and then Deron Bland has stepped up. Some other guys have gone down. Van Der Esch has gone down. And guys are stepping up on that defense. So talk about this year's team, the growth of Dak Prescott, and expectations for the rest of the season. And we can get into this game against the Eagles as well.
I got to be honest. I'm sorry, Pat. I actually missed that second part of the question, and thank God Tyler was able to wrap that up. Yeah, Will McClay, he's outstanding. I just wanted to add to that. Their draft class has been tremendous. They've done really well.
Yeah.
As far as this year's Cowboys team, Pat, I think Dak has been unbelievable. You mentioned the fact that him and McCarthy are doing a great job together, scheming up plays. What does Dak really like? I think that's important, the coach to quarterback relationship, whether it's the head coach to the quarterback or the OC to the quarterback. Their language that they're having right now after the 49er game has been impressive, to say the least. The fact that Dak is I think 21 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions in the last 6 or 7 games is unbelievable. I mean, he's playing at a rate right now that even the GOAT Tom Brady would be going, wow, marvel at. I mean, he's been as good as he's ever been. And I think it goes back to the rapport he has and what McCarthy wants and the confidence that they have in one another throughout the game. You look back at the Seattle game, the defense didn't play really well. They made the plays at the end that they needed to solidify and win that football game. But the Cowboys offense they never punted. Neither team punted in that football game. So that just goes to show you, what kind of run they are on offense. And Prescott and obviously McCarthy, he deserves a ton of credit for it. You go back, they missed Diggs early on, losing him early on has been unbelievable as far as being able to see what kind of depth they have. Picking up Gilmore in free agency has been great. I think also the other thing is Deron Bland, and I know he got picked on a little bit against Seattle, but the fact that he has 5 interceptions, or is it 6 for touchdowns? I mean, that's an NFL record, and he's been off the charts. Their pass rush, if Dallas gets the lead on you, they're going to win. If they're up about 2 scores in the second half, the odds for any football team to come back and beat Dallas is slim to none, because they just unleash the pass rush, and you as a quarterback, you have to get rid of the ball in less than 2 seconds. So I think this is their best football team. I think Jerry said it since the 90s. I don't know. We're about to find out here in the next 4 or 5 weeks, because after Philadelphia, they got Buffalo, Miami, and then Detroit before they end the season in Washington. So it is important for them to win this game this week. I think they need to win this game if they have any opportunity to host at least the divisional round, and they still have a chance of the number 1 seed overall. 14-game win streak right now at home. So if they can get this win and hope maybe Seattle beats Philadelphia the following week, win out, the Cowboys are division champs, and San Fran will have to lose a game. But if they do that, they're the number 1 seed. And you like your chances at least better than years past if they're playing at home to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think that's huge that you pointed out the way the Cowboys, their splits have been home versus road has been kind of glaring. Dak just plays incredible at home. Their defense plays better at home. And I know when they first had that stadium built, there wasn't much of that home advantage. But it has turned around, I think, over the last few years, and Dallas finally has like a home advantage now. But yeah, this year, I mean, the Diggs loss was huge because, Bland steps up and he's had the picks and everything. He's done really well, but like, just imagine if they still had Diggs, right? Maybe Bland doesn't have the interceptions, but now Bland's your number 3 guy, and he's more of that kind of nickel slot corner anyways. But Jordan Lewis, he is that guy for them as well. And he was coming off of a season-ending injury last year. So their D-back depth coming into this season was just deep. And I know we missed on Calvin Joseph. That was one of our few misses, but either way, Diggs would have been huge because they have a lot of safety depth too, right? They like to run that 3-man safety rotation with Curse, Donovan Wilson, and Malik Hooker. The Van Der Esch injury was big in the fact that Dallas's weakness, so to speak, on defense has been their inability to stop the run at times, and that's what Van Der Esch is, more of a run stopper than he is coverage linebacker. So losing him for the year and possibly, Marquise Bell's been huge. He's been huge for their defense, stepping up and filling that role. But Van Der Esch, losing him for possibly even his career because of that neck injury. So it's tough. I wish him the best of luck, and I hope he can come back. But like you mentioned, Marquise Bell, though, has been a dog for us, and he stepped up. What we really need on that D-line is Mozzie Smith. We spent a first-round pick on him this year. He's supposed to be that run stopper with a little bit of pass rush ability. That kid is incredibly strong. He's just got to, maybe he needs a year or two, but he's kind of that X factor if he can ever develop and become what we spent, that first round value on. That'd be huge for their D-line because we haven't had, as a Cowboys fan, we haven't had real dominant D tackles. And we've had some like good ones like Hatcher, Jay Ratliff, who was a late round pick who stepped up and had some good years for us, but we haven't had like a dominant D tackle. And I think when we picked Mozzie, I don't know if it was the first time ever that we drafted a D tackle in the first round, but I think it was like a first time in a long time. I couldn't tell you how long it was, but it's been a long time since they took a D tackle in the first round. So either way, though, like Coach pointed out, 9-3, huge game this Sunday night. We're actually the favorites. We're 3.5-point favorites versus the Eagles. I don't really know what's going on with Jalen Hurts as far as the injury. I know he exited last game but came back.
He's cleared.
Cleared. So I'm hoping we can get it done, and then the Niners can lose another one. Hopefully the Seahawks pull an upset a couple weeks in a row, right? They beat the Niners and then go beat the Eagles.
Play them.
Right, exactly. So that'd be huge. But I think also, like Coach said, this is going into this year before the Diggs injury. This was one of the more complete rosters that Dallas has had in a very long time. You look at, obviously, offensive end. We like Pollard. Pollard's solid. I think he hasn't been what people had hoped this year. But that's kind of, you take on a different role, a different workload when you become that number one back, as opposed to someone who, kind of supplements and gives the main guy a break like he has been for Zeke the last couple of years. So, but either way, the wide receivers, a lot of depth there. CeeDee's incredible. Gallup is, people look at him, if you look at pure numbers, hit or miss, but Gallup is actually a deep threat. He's a good high point, good red zone threat that they can utilize him. Cooks is Cooks. Fergie's been great. Schoonmaker, second round pick. Offensive line is solid when healthy. Tyron Smith, we just need him to stay healthy and we'll be fine. They got it. Dak's playing incredible. So they just gotta stay healthy. And hopefully we can get that number one seed, because that'd be huge to play at home in the playoffs. But Dallas has they have a real chance this year to make a deep run.
Before we get out of here, Jason, I'm going to let you add anything you want to add. And I just had one more question. After seeing what the Niners did to you earlier in the season, are you concerned about that at all if you have to play them again in the playoffs?
I would say if we're going to get to the 49ers, that's either in the divisional or the championship game. So we're in a good shot, to move on to that next round. I do think Dallas played one of their worst games of the year when they played the 49ers in San Fran. You look at it, they lost 3 in a row after Dallas. So the fact of the matter is they were ready for the game just as much as Dallas was, the lead up to that game. Dallas has lost now to them 49ers 3 times in a row if you count the regular season game. I think the Cowboys, more than the Eagles, have a better opportunity just because of what they possess on offense to be able to beat the 49ers than the Eagles do this time around. As long as Purdy's healthy, I think it's tough for the Eagles because of their issues in the secondary to be able to beat the 49ers, whereas I think Dallas can match them. I really do. I think if Prescott takes care of the football if we get to that point to play the 49ers, I think the Cowboys can get it done this year and move on to whether it's either the championship game or the Super Bowl. I like the chances to beat either Philadelphia or if Detroit's on the other end as well. I think the Cowboys, this is the year that, more than any other year, just because of their levels, Tyler does a really good job with the guys knowing the players, the personnel, the matchups the Cowboys have. I think they can stop the run better than they've had in years past, and that's been the problem when they've played the 49ers. They haven't been able to stop the run as good as they should. And then, you talked about it with Dak. He'll be judged on the postseason success. I mean, he's an MVP candidate right now, but if he doesn't get it done in the playoffs, it's still going to be, it's the same old Cowboys, same old Dak Prescott. So
Same old shit.
it's a big year for the Cowboys. Obviously, it's a big year for Dak. It's contract year. He could be the highest paid guy, but he's got to get it done in the playoffs. And I think he can, and I think he will. And you said it. The most important thing is when you look at it is health. They've got to have their guys healthy. And, knock on wood, they've been really fortunate. That offensive line's played together pretty much since week 5 or 6 after the 49er game. So if they can keep Prescott upright, I like his chances to be able to dissect the defense and attack. And then we just have enough in the run game. We're not dominant in the run offense as we'd like to be. But the fact that Prescott is able to handle the quick game, get rid of the ball out quick in space to guys like Lamb, obviously, and Cooks has been really prevalent the last 5 or 6 weeks as well. And then, if we can play from in front, the big key is to get a lead. If Dallas can get a lead on any football team, by 2 scores or more, Dallas has a really good chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl for sure.
Yep.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you guys thinking about me. I'm 48. Like I tell all our players now, a lot has changed in my life that for the better. But I'm still a super competitive guy. And the fact that you guys thought about me makes me feel good. And I hope you guys are really doing well. It's been a good time with you guys today.
Appreciate you coming on.
It was a blast having you on. I just wanted to add, so Jason was Tower and I's coach. We were in middle school when we were little assholes, and we went undefeated. Tower wasn't on the basketball team, but we went undefeated in basketball 7th grade year, undefeated baseball team that year, and then 8th grade we went undefeated in basketball as well. So awesome to have you on. I feel like I don't want to get into much of it, but I feel like you were unfairly ran out of town where we're from as coach of the football team, and is what it is at this point. For me, I always really appreciated you as a coach, having you. And it would have been nice I got all love and respect in the world for Coach Michaels, but it would have been nice for me to play quarterback in something outside of the wing tee. So that was unfortunate back then, but either way, it was great catching up with you. Great to see you. Hopefully the Cowboys do go on a run and we can have you on, sometime in the postseason. That would be a blast. But thanks again, Jason. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Be good, boys.
Sure. Will do. Thank
All right,
you.
see you later.
Take care.
That was Questions with a Fan, Dallas Cowboys edition. How about them Cowboys?
How about them?
We want to thank y'all for listening. Thank you very much for Jason, Coach Jason Truesdale, for coming on, talking to us. Awesome to catch up with him, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
When I told Tyler we were having him on, he could not believe it. I remember FaceTiming you last night. I was like, bro, you're never going to believe who we're having on this episode.
I know. I never would have guessed. I was talking to CJ too. I was like, I know it's going to be someone that we never would have guessed. But once Pat told me, I would have been like, of course. Why didn't I think of that? So perfect candidate.
Don't forget, if you are on YouTube right now, to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get at us on Instagram and Facebook. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy some Week 14 football. We will see you next week with our Week 14 recap. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Coach.
Goodbye.
Peace.
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore.